Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Sunday Sessions with Rich podcast. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. You could have spent your time somewhere else, but you're choosing to spend it with me. I appreciate it. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, where all streaming platforms are streamed. On today's episode, Nyle returns to the show, good friend of the show. She's the emotional intelligence, neuroplastic wellness coach, educator, practitioner, and also podcaster. Nyle, welcome back to the show.
Hey, I'm so excited to see you, be here, and have a chat. Love your chats. Thank you.
Of course. I gave you a mini red carpet, but for those who don't know who you are, please let us know who you are and what you got going on.
Oh my gosh. Well, you did give me the red carpet, and yeah, I'm honored for that. Thank you. Yeah, I do a lot of coaching. The foundations are rooted in emotional intelligence concepts, and it really runs parallel with inner work and shadow work for the spiritual community. And I also do accountability coaching. I'm a big proponent of self accountability.
Yep.
And I'm just writing up my fourth and final newsletter that I'll be releasing really soon on that.
Love that.
Yeah. And of course, I talk with people and work with people as a Reiki Master on energy hygiene and keeping those chakras going and flowing and harmonizing them. So it's all about just keeping it real. That's my whole goal, is to help people keep it real.
I love that. A woman of many talents. For those who don't know, because emotional intelligence is such an important thing. For those who are not even aware of it, it could be the first time tuning in and understanding the concept. From your lens and your practice and your everyday, how would you describe it?
Well, one of my teachers described it best, and I've used this a couple of times. And she said, it's about knowing when to bring it and knowing when to put it away. And so, yeah, and that's kind of all encompassing. And I've actually quoted her on Twitter once or twice, but and people ask me, well, what do you mean by that? I think most people know, but for those that are wondering specifics, it's really about knowing what to do about the emotions that come up within us and being accountable for them, being aware of them, being able to identify them, not projecting them onto other people.
Yep.
And then knowing what to do that best serves both us and our mission or our circumstance and the people around us. And knowing, like she said, when to put it away. So, impulse control is one of the 15 elements that I work with people on. And that's a big one.
That is a big one.
Yeah.
It's so easy in stressful situations to react, but you really have to practice that self-control. You have to.
Yeah, it's not not easy. That was one of my lowest scores when I first got into this work. I mean, I'm just, truth be told, it was.
It's
And
easier said than done.
yeah, it is. It is. And I'm walking proof that emotional intelligence work is the way to go. And again, I call it inner and shadow work as well, because it really runs the same pathway, just different language. So yeah.
It's because I'm realizing I like to look at like circumstances in like my life that pop up as like opportunities to challenge and practice and put things into to play. Like if someone's rude or stressful, if you're listening to this via audio, I'm doing hand quotations, situations to like really practice things, and you notice a shift almost immediately of the situations. Like it's a new character. It's so cool when you actually, it's all good to know the knowledge, but you have to apply the knowledge to really see the results. And when you see the results, it's really cool.
It is. Yeah. You mean when you're sort of quote unquote triggered, and
Yes.
then you kind of move through what you're going to do about that. Yeah. Yeah. It's the key in, I think, what you're saying is to become an observer of ourselves.
Yes.
Because that's really how we own what we got going on inside of us, right? And when we own what we have going on inside of us, then we're empowered to take it in any direction we choose.
And don't play victim.
Sorry?
I said, and don't play victim. It's so easy to play victim. You're making me react this way. No, not. No, not.
Ooh, Yeah, I think I heard you talking in a previous podcast about that one. That topic is
Ah,
it's a bit of a triggering one for a lot of people, because then people think, oh, well, you're blaming the victim then. And no, 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 no. That's not where we're going with this. Never would we do that.
exactly.
Yeah, like it's about owning what you have going on, and you owning your feelings. It was really interesting. Have you followed the guy Adam Grant?
The
I
name
think
sounds familiar. No.
yeah, he's into leadership, and he has a huge following on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and probably on Twitter as well. And he's a big speaker. He has yeah, he has at least one amazing book, probably more out there, but he recently posted on um, the idea that you can't make people feel anything.
Mm,
That's on you. And it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. I've posted about this too, but I had a slightly different spin than him. But his idea was, no, your emotions are yours to own, and it's your
yes.
interpretation of what people say,
Yes.
unless, of course, you're being provoked and abused. Like
Yes.
that's a whole different category
Mhm,
of where you being a victim is like legitimate. And
mhm.
yeah, but it's you have to discern the situation.
Ah,
And there's a difference between, is it your ego that's hurt, or is it
yeah, it's
your
the
heart or your ego?
I feel like most cases it is the ego.
Isn't it? Yeah, that's
It's
where
such
most
a,
people operate. So
and I don't even, you would, unless you know why you're reacting a certain way, you wouldn't really be able to hold yourself accountable. I think that's why it's important for spaces like these, because you might be listening like, oh, they're calling me out, but it's true. Like nobody's making you feel that way. Like if somebody cut me off in traffic and I get angry, that's my fault. I got angry. I allowed that person to make me angry. The person
yeah,
kind of becomes a master of my emotions. I could have just been like, you know what?
yeah,
Maybe that person's just impatient. That's okay. Hope you get to your
yeah.
destination. Like you can script it differently.
I have a funny little story
Ooh.
that made me see things a little different. This is just a small little snippet. Um, uh, Quite some time ago, I started working with a gal from Montreal who moved here, and I guess their driving styles might be different than here on the West Coast. And she was driving, and she was cutting people off left, right, and center, and saying in her rearview mirror, "Thank you for letting her
Yeah.
in." She's like, "Thank you." It wasn't about her cutting them off. She's like, "Yeah, I moved in. I just moved in."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, she didn't see it as cutting them off. She had a completely different take.
Dang. And it's also changing the energy in that experience too.
Yeah,
Oh wow. I never thought about that. That is nice. I don't know about it's cool like playing little hack games in your reality. Like we all know, like it's like as cliche as life is a game, blah, blah, blah. But when you actually are applying stuff and it's just fun. Life is
yeah,
fun.
yeah. It is. It's empowering, and then it
Yeah.
becomes fun. I so
That's
agree.
you and this is what when you can become you switch from that victim mentality to the empowered um reality because now you're saying, okay, I know that I'm experiencing this because of me. I'm responsible for how things go. If I am triggered by something, I understand that it's something that I still believe and need to address and observe and just look at it from a different perspective. And it's just so freeing and powerful.
Oh yeah. And it's interesting about being triggered part, because there was a really great quote that I just saw by Inner Practitioner.
Oh,
It
I love him.
said, the beginning of it, yeah, he's great. The beginning of it said something like, your guilt can make you feel something like this. Your guilt can make you feel more right. No, your anger can make you feel more right. Your guilt can make you feel more wrong. And so it's interesting when we follow the emotions as opposed to leading ourselves despite them, what you can do.
Especially
Isn't
in
it brilliant?
arguments. It's
Yeah. Yeah. When you're angry, you're way more right. If you're staying in that anger and being led by that anger, and it really does reduce empathy. And same with feeling guilty. You just become more wrong, and it reduces self-empathy if you let yourself be led by the emotion. And emotions are meant to be through the body and out. And then what happens, of course, which we learn in emotional intelligence, is we make stories and we attach them to feelings, and then it becomes a mental model, a story that becomes a reality, even if it's not real.
Because all the thoughts that we think aren't true. They're just like passing clouds, or just it
Well,
could
they
have been
might be.
it
Yeah.
could have been it could have been something you saw, you ingested on that day, and a thought is passing through. And it's really up to us to identify. um this just popped in my head. I feel like they're codes that pass through our head, and it's up to us to align with the one we want. And oftentimes we do the ones we don't want unconsciously, in a way.
Ooh, it really depends, doesn't it? Depends on where we're operating from. Are we
Oh, yeah.
operating from ego or heart? Right?
Oh, it's so beautiful. I've been past year or so, I've been operating from the heart space, and it's such a game changer in the way
Yeah.
you observe people and interact with people, and just come from a place of compassion. Even like family members, yeah, you might have to create a healthy distance and boundary,
Yeah.
uh, but even just a random person, an experience, just because at the core you understand that this person is a source, universe, God, operating under this disguise, this amnesia, and you extending kindness could have been the one thing that could have helped them along their journey, and you chose to mirror them instead of showing unconditional love. And I always say, like, God or whatever you believe in, we do things that's probably not, very pleasable, but I guarantee you, no one's judging us, and you have to operate the same way to other people,
Hmm.
in my opinion.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. I think so. That's, I can't even add to that.
Easier said than done. In some situations, it's
Oh,
tricky. Do not get me wrong.
no,
Not all airy fairy.
well, yeah. And we also, I mean, I don't like, I think you have to keep your ego intact. I
Yeah.
don't believe in like, oh, no ego. Ego is about self-protection,
Mhm.
self-identity, and sometimes we absolutely need to use it. It's about being conscious about how we use it. But as you say, when you start operating more so from the heart space in situations where your ego was usually the primary operator, it is a game changer. It's so beautiful.
It is. One thing the inner practitioner said that always stuck with me about anger is just letting us know that a boundary has been crossed. And it's
Yeah.
our fault that that boundary has been crossed. It's not that person. We allowed that boundary to be crossed. And if you can just look at it from just that key point, when you notice yourself getting angry, just be like, where did I go wrong to allow this situation to happen? Because I have to hold myself accountable.
Yeah, I mean, that's tricky. I would say it's like there's definitely a part that we play
Okay.
in it. I don't know if I would
It's all
say it's
situation
entirely
based.
our, yeah, it's
I
situational.
agree.
Like I don't know if it's always our fault per se, but we
Yeah.
definitely play a role in everything that relates to us. And so it just depends on how much.
Mhm.
And sometimes, yeah, you walk right into stuff willingly, but unconsciously, and then it happens, as opposed to when you're conscious,
Mhm.
you tend to make better decisions, although it gets complicated in relationships, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. I'm always curious now. I'm always curious about this. I know everyone has their own version of Earth that they operate and see things from. I'm curious, since we've last spoken, um, how is your reality? How do you see the world right now, and how do you see it becoming better?
It's a massive question.
I
I love it.
know.
How do I see the world right now? Well, I think that over the last few years, and I know we did talk through the timeline that was a little more challenging,
Hmm.
when things were locked down a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
So I see that we have gotten to a place where the collective consciousness has, um, in some ways, gone back, taken a step back a little bit, and some people kind of got pulled through. And so, in terms of if we're talking about like the awake community.
Yeah.
I think some people got pulled through, and more people are starting to see patterns that are going on in the world that are quite obvious. And being in an emotional intelligence in this field, and particularly in leadership, we look at leadership styles and the way that people influence people.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of the applications of leadership that are much more creating forceful influences on people's thinking. And so I have noticed, you've probably seen it too, that there's this divide
Yes.
in society over some of the issues. It's been amplified. The divide has been amplified in politics, in health, and the way that we were managed through the global pandemic, as people call it, and through issues of racism and discrimination, and a lot of the issues seem to have become a little bit more polarized and less empathy, because people are becoming more solid in their position on two real sides. It feels like there's two real sides in so many issues, and so I feel like there's this amplification of polarization that's happened, not with everyone, but even with people who kind of started to see how the world is being led in a certain direction, and people's thinking is being influenced more. Even people who are starting to see that are becoming, in some cases, polarized in how can you not see what's going on, and getting angry, so anyways, I don't know if I'm
you're
saying it clearly.
You are, yeah.
But it's so that's a little bit hard, being such a sensitive person that I am, to see the collective consciousness going in different directions, and more amplified anger. But so there has been this growth. Some people have talked about this growth of darkness, and of sort of darker energies, and draining energies. And I work with a model called the Map of Consciousness with Dr. David Hawkins. I don't know if you worked with his.
No,
okay.
I'm curious.
So he's a psychiatrist from Berkeley who did a bunch of studies and tests, and he's kind of dedicated his life to this kind of work, where he mapped out a range of people's emotions that were evoked in a lab, and they hooked them up to energetic equipment. So when they evoked particular emotions, there were these energy frequencies that were emitted, and they found some they came up with some data that showed that there are certain emotions that when people are evoked, they emit more energy. They have more energy to give. They have more energy in them. And then there's sort of this neutral point, and then there's these lower vibrational energies that they found with certain emotions. So you won't be surprised, but so the lowest emotion on this hierarchy of emotions, and keeping in mind, I don't believe that there's negative and positive emotions. I believe that all emotions are basically biochemical reactions that happen in us, and it's what we do with them that becomes, by perception, negative or positive. So I don't look at anger as a negative emotion. I don't look at sadness as a negative emotion. I call them difficult emotions, because most people aren't very well practiced at what to do with them. And they also take up more energy. They are more draining. But that's because there's more learning in those emotions. There's more learning. So the lowest vibration that was emitted was when shame was evoked. And I can't remember all of them right now, but other emotions that are in the lower vibrational that actually drain people, they're like energy vampires, are sadness, guilt, fear, shame, even anger. But anger is one step below courage, and courage is at the neutral line. And where you're neither giving up energy, or like you're not being drained, but you're also not giving. But anger can boost you up into courage, and then courage can take you up into action, where you are using more energy. And the higher energies that were being emitted in these experiments were things like joy and love and peace and transcendence, which a lot of people may not know. But it's a pretty cool place to be. Like, it's in your meditative states that you can get there and other ways. But so this kind of emotional stuff. Where was I going with this, Rich?
So I know with anger, it's in a way you're alchemizing
Yeah.
that situation. You can either let it be a negative emotion or saying, hey, this is going to inspire me for something else.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. I know what we were talking about though. So we were talking about
We're back.
we were talking about what's going on in the world. And
Yes.
so what has been looked at, there's I can't remember the name of them. I think they're called the Graceland Institute, nothing to do with Elvis. It was somewhere that I read that there was this estimate that it's between 15 to 20% are potentially vibrating more often at the time in these higher vibrational frequencies as a default. And that 80%-ish, and this is of course an estimate, take all of that I say with a grain of salt, 80% of the global community are vibrating below the neutral line as a default. And when I learned about that years ago, and I started to take a look at the energies of the people and the way that people are influenced in the world through media, social media, news, government, politics, corporations, global sort of agendas and narratives that are being spoken out there, I started seeing the ways that people are controlled, depleted, and don't really do anything. They're listening to be directed almost.
Yeah.
And so through the pandemic, what I saw was like a lot of fear. Obviously, we saw a lot of fear, and understandably, one of the biggest fears in the world is about health and am I going to die? And people were worried, understandable. Yeah. I started to wonder myself in the beginning, like what's going on. And then I started to learn more and realized, okay, here's where I can start to do some work and really affect change and help and support people through what I do. But then what we started to see was shame was starting to happen, because for a lot of people who were sort of questioning things or who just flat out didn't really agree with sort of the curated agendas and the way that the news was kind of the same everywhere, but then there were different realities happening in different parts of the world. A lot of the people that I worked with during that period were living in other parts of the world, different continents and different countries, and there were just so many different perspectives about this and so many different realities and so many different things going on, and then of course so much censorship and so many things where everybody's like got a very different experience. So I, of course, wanted to stay in this neutral zone. But watching how influenced people were and how the emotions were evoked that actually led to being much more influenced. And so it was a real eye-opener to see just how
constant charge.
Yeah, and just how disempowered people can become by following their emotions based on putting it together with narratives that kind of don't always sound quite right.
No. And it creates a further divide as well too. You don't even see that as creating a divide.
Yeah, divide and conquer is one of the oldest leadership tricks in the book for taking charge of people. It's kind of it makes me sad. I just want to say that it's been quite a trip to watch this going on and to watch people move into disempowered places because the sources of influence that they choose they believe to be the entire truth of our existence. And it's a trip.
I think that's what it is. Oh yeah, my mom, unless the news told her that it's true, she won't believe. I can show her a factual proof or something. She's like, but I think it's important for spaces like these. That's why I love these conversations, because it can be a reel that pops up on somebody's thing that they're on, and just that 5 seconds made them think differently or resonated during that time. So we're the media, if you will, even with everything that you do and what you represent. You're your own positive influence to shine light and bring people into the good life, the nice life, the nice earth that we exist in it.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, and I really love what you just said about being your own biggest influence. And that is so key that we do, like what I used to call it, like bring it through your own fact checker. Like just because you want to believe everything that, CNN or BBC or whatever says, like it's because they claim to be the most trusted source, or some external entity
Who gave
claims
that
them to be.
credibility? Who gave that? That's the law. That's the That's the Bible.
Well, it's
It
yeah, it's a bit of a conundrum how that
is.
happens, but people resonate with what people resonate, and
Yes.
and people are great. Like like the thing about news is that most people forget is that they're actors reading a script. Like that's the
Yes.
thing that most people forget, that most newscasters are actors reading a script, and it's all very very curated, and it's all very very coordinated, and news is not
You want to
very
know?
credible.
You want to know something though? I don't even think that they even think to that. That they're reading the script and then being told. I don't even think it's that even that simple understanding. That it's like, okay, we're just saying this and you just take it in. Because before I even broke down what the news was, if you just turn it on, it's just okay, this is what people are saying. Yeah, they might have something on the paper they might have wrote, but when you break it down, okay, who's telling you this information? And then who's
Yeah.
telling them that this is the right information? It's
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Well, it's all very, very curated. And yeah, like back in 2020, I kind of took a look at like who owns which networks, and who
Yeah,
owns which media outlets, and who owns what, and where does,
you have to.
it's just like studies in science. I mean,
Yeah,
who is funding this,
yeah.
and who stayed on the peer review panel, and who left, or who had to leave. These are the things that when I took my master's degree, I started to read about, scientists who were at the end of their career, because they couldn't say this at the beginning or in the middle of their career, about how they actually had to step off of peer review panels because their findings were quite different than what everybody else wanted the results to look like in the final conclusions. So, and then you get called a conspiracy theorist or a whistleblower and get discredited and whatever. I mean, believe what you want to believe, but I just want the truth. That's all I ever really care about. Whether
That's
it's
it.
hard to hear, hard to imagine, the makings of an existential crisis, give it, bring it. I want to know what is the actual truth. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm always going for. And I think that's what empowers us, is really, full accountability.
Just let me know how things are ran, and let me make my decisions from there. Just don't
Yeah.
just show me the hand. Just lay it out for me.
And the thing is that human beings, we're so divine, aren't
Yeah.
we? We're such powerful beings, and what we're made of is just so powerful. And we forget to give ourselves credit for that. We forget to give ourselves credit for what we're capable of when we're given all the facts and whatever information we need to be able to discern for ourselves and decide for ourselves. We deserve that. That's what we're here for, is to experience life in true form.
And it's we're here to live the most divine, fun experience ever. That's the
Mm.
purpose, and you deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve that $8 Starbucks. It's no shame. You deserve it. If you want it every day, no shame. Get that Starbucks, guys. No, not shame.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
do I feel it's something I've been leaning on. Andy on Twitter. I love taking constructive criticism. I was recording with him earlier, and he was suggesting like, Rich, you're not pretty much you're not going all out on your podcast, and he's like just holding me accountable. Like you can be doing so much more, and I'm like, you're right. But if I could have took that in a threatening, offensive. What do you mean I'm not doing much? I'm dropping episodes every single week. But he's looking at it from a messenger, just like an outside looking in. Like, hey, I see you could be doing that. I could see, this is just me helping you. And I find even in friendships and other aspects, people don't like when someone tries to like help them out. They might, it's the ego. It all comes down to the ego. You feel attacked. But it's like, no, I'm actually grateful. I have been slacking on certain things, and thank you for holding me accountable. I think that's so beautiful.
Wow. Wow. That's beautiful to hear. And I so agree with you. I want to hear the goods. And sometimes when it's delivered with love
Yeah.
versus when it's delivered from ego, when
Yes.
it's like you're being judged, you're being criticized, you're being compared to something, you're seen as competition. That's not where Andy, and I know who you're talking about, Andy's vibe, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yep. Yep.
he shoots from the heart. He
Yep.
does. And isn't that beautiful when we know it? Yeah. And when that makes all the difference. And but sometimes, whether or not someone's coming from the heart, if you're in your ego, it's an attack. And then what
Yeah.
do? Yeah, then you shut down, then you get defensive, then you try to defend your current position and dig your heels in even more where
Yep.
you are. And that's it's a beautiful thing when you can take it where it's coming from.
Just using
Yeah.
it's all about discernment. And
Yeah.
the discernment is definitely key. And everything is perspective. Just choose the thought that feels good, the reality that feels good. If you're complaining about, I don't want to do this today, just say, I get to do this. I get to go to work. I get to work with these clients. I get to experience this from this situation. And because nothing is guaranteed. This dream, this life is beautiful. Yeah, some things that could be better, you know.
Yeah.
But for all in all, like, God damn it, we got it pretty good. Jeez, life is freaking
We do.
good.
we have we have lots of opportunities. I mean, some less than others for sure, depending on where you're born and what your circumstances are. But it's interesting when you go to different parts of the world and you see what appears to be an impoverished community.
Mm.
And these people are so happy. They are
Yeah,
filled with joy because
yeah,
they've got a community and they're working in the dirt every day, working on working with the earth, that the God-given earth that's
yeah,
feeding their bodies every day with beautiful food, and they're working together synergistically to create an experience and maybe they're living in huts or whatever it is. But uh, some of these communities really can teach some of our communities how to get back to basics and really live a joyful life.
I
Yeah.
agree. Having especially that community part,
Yep.
I feel like that's so important right now. A lot of like we're searching for answers or searching for like-minded people. Um, Now more than ever, I feel like, because it's like we talked about earlier, so much of misinformation out there. It's hard to know what's true and what's not true.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I just got a little triggered on the misinformation because what is that? I'm sorry. I hear there's
No.
like committees that are being formed for what
Mhm.
and who's to decide what that means.
Thought it was free speech. It's whether you're
Yeah.
aligned with it or not.
Yeah.
Like it's
It's the weird stuff. That's weird stuff to me. But getting back to what you were saying about community and finding like-minded people, I do love being with like-minded people, but I will say like-hearted people is really where it's at.
yeah.
Because when you're like-hearted, you don't have to be like-minded. It helps. It helps.
Mm,
There's more harmony in the conversation sometimes, depending on how attached to your beliefs you are,
I like that. Yeah.
right? But it's like
Um,
it's a whole other experience to be with like-hearted people when you're like, yeah, I hear you, I see you, and
yeah.
I see where your passion is in that position,
Yep.
and you're okay. That's not mine, and I love you,
I
you
love
know?
that perspective. Oh, I love that. Light-hearted people. That is so true. Because we don't, I mean, of course, we're
Yeah.
not all going to agree on everything. That would be boring if we all did.
Well, you don't learn much that way. You just confirm much. Right?
That's literally the universe's point of this whole thing. Just
Yeah.
go all have individual free will, just come back with all the information.
Yeah. Yeah. Live your life, like live a well-lived life with lots of rich experiences that are diverse and yeah, filled with, learning to be okay with the differences out there.
Yeah. I've noticed, and this is not throwing like throwing shade or anything. I've noticed in the spiritual community on Twitter, during the pandemic, a lot of people going backwards, not backwards in a negative sense. I'm not attacking or judging, but
Yeah.
but I was curious about that. I was like, wow, like noticing more people shift their perspective on what they believe. I just found that interesting.
So do you have any examples?
Yeah, like going like from our awareness of creating your reality and the universe and God and all that to Christianity in a sense, like going to back to believing in the Bible. And I
Okay.
was like, wow, like that. Again, not attacking. I always found that fascinating. Like, what? How does that happen? How does I don't know.
So they moved into more religious
Back
dogma,
to a religion. Yeah,
religion versus spirituality.
yeah,
Yeah, isn't that interesting? It's I mean, I don't see that necessarily as a negative thing, but I did
right.
see some division as a result of that, which
Agree.
is it is tough. Okay, so I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And yeah, I definitely saw that too. I definitely saw that
Mhm.
too, where people were pulling back into religious rules and sort of the confines of you know what life is supposed to look like
Mhm.
within that context. And that is divisive. It is divisive
Yeah,
when so much of the world has there's such diversity in religious beliefs. And um, what I what I feel is most important is for us to take a look at the commonalities, not the differences and not the restrictions.
exactly.
Um, I mean, given a few assumptions, I mean, I think we need to always be operating under the assumption that we're never to do harm to
Yes,
others. And so
100%.
given that, I think allowing people the freedom to choose how they live and not, sort of trying to prescribe, well, this is how you need to live
Yeah,
your life. And
this is the right
but
way.
so you noticed it through the pandemic, you're saying, where
I
people just started falling back.
falling back and then becoming judgmental, and
Oh,
like it is
yeah.
like, oh, this is the opposite of what it was before. Because I get,
Mm-hmm.
I, I don't care what you believe. Everything you believe is true. Is projecting to your reality. I understand that.
Yeah.
But then when you go back to a judgmental state, it's like, you're operating backwards now. That was you can believe what you
Yeah.
believe, but also understand like it's truth to what you once believed. That's why things will be experienced. It's just like, how do you go backwards?
I think it happened because there was a lack of safety in the world at that time. And, so much division and so much of, questioning, well, who can I trust now? And,
You
and,
think that fear was
and,
super strong and
mhm.
you needed like that blanket?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
I don't know. I mean, if it came out in a like a divisive way, if that's what
yeah.
you started to see, and I think I think I saw it too. But I think when it's divisive like that, I'm all for, yeah. If turning to Jesus gives you the strength to move through life with more grace and be able to navigate these hard times with more strength and grace and community and love,
Yeah.
then do it. But if
Yeah.
it's creating a wall, then what are you doing? What are you doing?
Where's the
And
community aspect of that as well?
but that's the essence of it, right? Because
Mm,
creating that wall is about fear, and fear is like a blanket over your heart that's more than a blanket. It's like
it's
a
like
shell.
cement. It's
Yeah, it's hard.
um,
It's hard. And I think that's what happened. It was like I said, that the timeline was filled with fear and shame, and a lot of isolation and a lot of division, um and camps of people. And of course we were directed to have bubbles of six in
yeah.
our community up here. And so if you're not in that bubble of 6 people, well, you're out.
Yeah,
And I mean, what's that telling people? What is that telling
exactly.
people? I mean, it made sense to people from a medical perspective, because they believed in well, in the prescription of how to behave
Yeah.
around this idea that you're only safe with 6 people in your bubble. But it was representative of much more,
Yeah.
and it played out to be much more. And I think it did something right up in here in that
Yep.
little pineal gland area, that
Yep.
it to a lot of the aware community, it dampened things, it hindered things, it blocked people's ability to really see clearly. And that's the way it goes, right?
Yeah.
That's the way life goes sometimes. But it's a practice to hold space amidst that, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And that was, I think, yours and my role here, among others that we know, was to hold space through that for ourselves, first and foremost, to be able to see it and not be pulled into it or repelled too much by it or affected too much, because you can get pulled into it
so easily.
You
have to even like during everything that was going on, I just operated in a mindset of like everything's fine, world's back to normal, everybody's good, and this too shall pass. I was fine. My timeline was fine. It's fine now. It's just guys, just operate on like the version of Earth or reality that you want, that's peaceful and everyone's in harmony and blah. But just operate from that vibration. There's multiple Earths. We're infinite amount of cells and realities out there. Just tune into the frequency of the one you want. Don't subscribe to the fear-based one, because you won't like what you see.
Yeah, it's interesting how hearing you say that. I like what you said. Yeah, I like that, and I agree. But it is interesting how some of the spiritual community might have considered that as sort of bypassing.
Yep.
And it really just depends. It really just depends. It's
There's
like
that cap wall. Nope, we can't go past that. It's like, no, this is where you really need to practice it. This is really, and it got too scary, and it said, no,
we're going back down
we're going
into
back
this,
down.
into believing these narratives over here, and
Nope. Because it's safe. It's a blanket.
safe. It's safe, even though it's like a scary safe. It's safe. Yeah, it's a sad place to see people descend like that. And but we have to stay strong, and like I said, hold the space and hold the light, so that we keep going.
We are the lighters of the world. It's pretty cool. Nyle, I always ask this last question to my guests. What would your message be to humanity during this time?
Oh, during this time.
I love these timestamps. This is so cool.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful question. I have so much to say.
Please.
But I think it's just my message that I always want people to remember: to continue to step into your power and stay in your power, and remember your heart, return to your heart, because I believe that life is going to continue to throw us challenges, big and small, and we need to remember that our heart strengthens the world and our community and ourselves, not our ego.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Nyle, thank you so much for being on today's episode.
Thank you.
Guys,
I really appreciate this.
I appreciate you. I will provide all of Nyle's links for her website, her link tree, and her podcast as well. A good friend of the show, and I'm looking forward to having you back on in the future.
Thank you. Of course. Appreciate it.